Okay, so we've talked a lot about cultural stuff, but what about when it comes to asking about salary and other benefits, work-life balance, pension? So this is always a tricky one. When you go for certain jobs, they don't tell you at all what the salary is. I guess a lot of the time they don't. There's some negotiation. That's
Mm.
why it's not put out. So you really have to know what you want to, what kind of salary you want. Um, my, my questions around this, however we want to answer them, is are there any tips you've got for trying to determine what the salary range and benefits might be? And secondly, how do you avoid going through an entire interview process, targeting your CV and your interview to that particular company, and then finding out that they just when you get offered the job and it's just not enough money for you to consider?
Yeah.
How can you avoid that, or what can you do in that situation?
Okay. So there's two ways, obviously, well, not obviously, but there's two ways of getting a job traditionally, like the most popular ways. You either apply direct to the company or you go through a recruiter, like myself.
Mm-hmm.
So generally, if a company advertises a position direct on their site, they will have all the information on there. They're a lot less gatekeepy with that information. The reason I believe, although I do put the salary on my job descriptions, but the reason I believe that some recruiters don't is it's kind of a personal gain thing for them as well. They want as many applicants as possible. They want to put as many people forward to the employer as possible. But if you're working with a recruiter, you have every right to say, look, if this position, you might not need like an actual figure, but you could say, and it's reasonable to say, look, if this position is going to pay less than X, I'm wasting your time, I'm wasting the client's time, So that would be my advice is to, if it's not on there, ask the recruiter. And if you go, let's say you're going on LinkedIn or Indeed to apply for positions, the agency name and who is managing that vacancy should be on there. So just give them a ring before you've even started your CV or whatever it is, any other prep. Just give them a ring and ask. And the good thing about that is as well is then they'll have your details and know what you're looking for. So
Mm-hmm.
it's also like a way of networking, which is kind of, it's like two birds, one stone. So yeah, I'd say just reach out direct and ask because like you say, and I think actually that's because a lot of people get called out on LinkedIn and stuff now because it's really bad practice to not put a salary range on there. It's mental. It's like
Yeah,
advertising a car and not putting how many miles it's done. It's nonsensical. We go to work to earn money,
yeah,
so that it
yeah.
needs to be on there. In terms of asking, about benefits and work-life balance, again, that's very tricky. But I would say just approach with confidence. If you're looking for a certain work-life balance in an interview, and you ask that question in an interview, and the answer is not what you were looking for, fine, you've dodged a bullet because all that would have happened is that you would have gone into a position and not enjoyed it, and it not complemented your life.
Yeah,
Um,
you need to make sure that you've got that. You're going to work there, full time for so many
yeah,
hours a week, so it has to work for you, doesn't it?
yeah,
And some people, as we said before, might have commitments. They might have a family
yeah,
member they have to care for.
exactly.
What? When would you bring that? Would you bring that up in the interview? So one of the things we talk about in the course is when it comes to like questions at the end, which would be good to get your perspective on. Um, Ask a lot about the company and the challenges that they're facing, so that you
Mm,
can present some potential solutions. So
yeah.
that shows that not only are you committed to that company and the team and their
Mhm.
success, but they already see that, this guy's got some, or girl's got some solutions,
Right.
or already ready to go. And
Yeah.
then would you then wait to see if you've got offered the job before you start asking about or negotiating salary and benefits? Or is the interview a good time to ask about that?
Um, it's difficult. I think it is probably a case by case, which I know is not very helpful. But I would say if before you kind of really start the process, if you like I say, if you've got that basic salary kind of right, it's going to be this as a minimum,
Hmm.
and you know that the hours, what they are roughly, if it's traveling or what, like you say, anything that you might not be able to do. If you've kind of got that, okay, I've got a loose idea, then that's fine. I'd say that that's fine to kind of go right the way through with because then that as a bare minimum, what you need has been ticked,
Hmm.
the money, the hours, or whatever. I would say that the negotiation comes probably a little bit after you've been offered the position,
Hmm.
because that's when the ball's really in your court. If you start to try to negotiate, I guess, prior to that, then you run the risk of coming across badly, even
Hmm.
though it's not, but you know, it's how you handle that.
Yeah.
And it can almost like create like a bit of defensiveness. Because especially if you're going through a recruiter, it's the recruiter that does the negotiation.
Right. Yes.
So if a company brings it up with you in an interview, brilliant, because they've opened the floor. And I would say really run with that. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
tell them what you want. They've asked you. You know, so be honest, and a lot of companies will respect that.
I suppose a candidate might then be thinking, "Oh, I really want this job, and they've asked me that question, and I don't want to,
Yeah,
stick my foot in it by telling them something they don't want to hear."
yeah,
I guess you should just be honest.
yeah,
And if you don't get it, it was probably the right decision for all parties. But
exactly. Like, and I also think, and I've seen this before, where someone's got so far through, through the interview stages, and then they've rang me and said, "Do you know what? Like, I really want to work for this company. I think there's real potential. I'm happy to drop my initial expected salary
mhm.
for that." So I think as you go through the process, you kind of your personal situation might change as well. Like your mindset might change to like, actually, this company's going to really serve me more than just financially. You know, it's going to serve me in my work life balance with my kids, with my family, with my friends, like with my general health. So there's always like a little bit of like, I think like inner negotiation for I really
Yeah.
that's
Okay. Yeah. So
what will I trade off, you know?
Yes. And I suppose for certain roles, you can maybe negotiate a lower salary initially, but if you meet your sales targets or whatever it is, if you can actually bring in some financial value from the work you're doing, maybe you can negotiate, take a percentage of that, or
Exactly.
increase your salary over time. So perhaps there's ways to negotiate even initially if it's not what you wanted, but with good performance, you could get it up. I guess
Yeah.
that would then require drawing a contract in under those terms.
Yeah, of course. And then that's really, really common, you know, especially if a company's like on the fence and budget's one of their biggest motivators in hiring, which, you know, it happens. Um, Kind of having those skills to negotiate. And I've done it and it's worked out really, really well. Especially with like reputable companies and stuff where they'll keep the word, but like you say, it needs to be in a contract. But that's kind of I like that part of interviews. I like that part because that's the first time in the situation you've got that power to kind of like tussle a little bit and you can really get your personality across and they can see how you deal then as well in like pressured situations because I know if I ask somebody in an interview like, okay, so what are your salary expectations, I see it in their face straight away. They're like, oh gosh, like same as like you said, you don't want to like price themselves out,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, just be confident with it. Like I personally really enjoy that as an interview, as a recruiter. I enjoy that because it shows me what they're about a bit.
I suppose when it comes to this course and interview prep, these are a bunch of things you need to also consider when it comes to questioning is what are you going to
Exactly.
say if they ask what your salary and your benefit expectations, what is it that you enjoy from a company culture. These are questions you don't want to get stumped on.